I am Noemi Panimat from Education 3000 with Quantum Education. And today we are with Juan Villegas with a very beautiful subject. It's called, and it's practical too, it's called Transformation in Education from the Quantum Perspective. Welcome, Juan, and thank you again to be together with this program.
Thank you for having me.
So what is transformation about?
So in this episode, we're going to a little bit like putting together everything that we talked before, no? Like how the brain is creating reality, how we can change this perception, how we can direct ourselves towards something else. I want to keep it a little bit simple and also practical, no? Like putting all this information together, how we can begin to, what will be the process to change to a new paradigm. And for this, I will just touch some things like briefly and like briefly recap some things. But for this, it's like, first we need to see that in the, whatever we are right now with our particular situation, either with kids or with students or in society, we already have like a perception of reality. We already have like a reality that we are like, for the most part, we have a lot of unresolved conflicts and issues going on. So whenever we try to think of like new ways of education, new ways of this, new ways of that, these old issues from the past that are not resolved, they keep coming back and they're like, hey, like this is not working, you need to solve this first. And we don't know how. So basically we give up, we don't think about how to change anything, and we just try to get by. Or sometimes what has been happening is that we can try to put this aside, all these old issues, and still put all our energy to try to create something new, imagine it and act on it. And for many of us who've been working in but sooner or later, the old issues, they keep coming back. The old problems with parents, with students, with each other, with society, with the government, with the curriculum, with whatever. So there are some things that are not resolved, that they are there. So what I propose is that, okay, everybody can do either way they want, but what I find more practical is to give a little bit of time to resolve first what are our issues, what are like emotional wounds that we have with parenting, with education, with children, with each other, with the educational system as a whole, with a society or the government.
Yeah, the old system, by the way.
There are a lot of issues there that are gonna keep coming back.
Definitely. I agree.
So once we resolve all that, it's gonna be much easier to have the clarity of mind, to be able to come up with a practical solution to what we want that is also at peace with our current reality, and to be able to implement it without having all these old demons coming all the time to mess things up.
Mm-hmm.
So in a practical way, what I would recommend to everybody, this is like not going so much into the theory of like how this works and all that, because I think we have already touched and there is not so much time. So to keep it really practical, what I would recommend is like to actually take a notebook, make a list, like.
Okay, let me make my list too. So everybody, we are doing our homework now.
What are the problems I have at the moment? What are the issues I have with the educational system as a father or as a teacher?
Mm-hmm.
And relationship with other co-educators and with kids.
Okay.
There is a lot there. already. That if we don't really solve, it's going to be difficult to move forward. And in fact, solving some of these things, it's what's going to give us the clarity to what we need. Now what we talked before is that to change the relationship and to solve this issue in our minds, it's not just to find like a solution, which sometimes we don't even have access to, we don't know what it is, but to also to resolve the emotion that keeps creating, looking for, repeating this pattern. We have like a lot of these patterns that we are like looking to recreate over and over and over. So at the root of all these patterns is often like an emotion that has not been able to resolve itself, to express itself, and it just keeps looking for problems to come up again and again inside us. So with this list of things that are not working well in our perception.
Okay. So we make a list first.
Yeah. What I recommend is to go to the feeling. How do I feel? What is this making me feel? Is it angry? Is it disappointed or sad? Or is this making me feel guilty? This is coming very strongly often as parents.
So I see if I am angry, if I am sad, if
I am guilty.
I have fear,
yeah,
and guilt.
Yeah.
Fourth thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Angry, sadness, fear, and guilt.
So more often than not, it can be a combination of all these things, but we're gonna have one or two of these feelings. I'm gonna recommend a little bit what can we do with each of these feelings to bring a resolution to them and to have clarity. To once the feeling has come and we let it process inside, it's gonna transform us. I don't know how, I don't know what's gonna be the result or what insights I'm gonna get, but after this transformation, I will see things a little bit different and I will see better how to move on. So one of the most difficult for many of us is anger, because it's one of the ones that we have been taught to, that is really bad, and to suppress it and all that. And for sure, like to express the anger to someone is often going to create some problems. But the anger in itself, it's an emotion that it's meant to transform us, so we can have more clarity in what to express and what to do.
Sí, Juan, dice que anger, they say that anger is when you really love justice, you have anger. It's actually can be positive. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. So the anger is just trying to like align us with our truth. And when the anger, when we have like let the anger pass through us and we have expressed it, we will generally be much more calm, much more grounded, but we will still think what we think, but we will be able to communicate it in a loving way.
In a loving way. Great. So we write down all that, right? We were doing the list.
So what I want to recommend for anger is that, because it's a bit difficult, anger is generally calling for some action. And sometimes the anger is telling us like, call this person, do this, like get angry, and it's difficult to just like let the emotion like be processed inside us. So something that works very good with anger is to actually like express like a noise, or to draw it, or to dance it. So you can express the energy, and the energy can like circulate. It's not suppressed. It's not gonna like damage anybody or anything.
But that's like the trick, no shout to somebody, but process without hurting anybody.
Yes, and like express it on paper, or make it like a noise, or like, you know, like a or something like ah. Yes, I can be much stronger, or like
Scared.
or work on the garden, doing something, and like get
Yeah, cut wood.
cut wood, do something to get the energy circulating, and as it
Correct.
circulates, it begins to like those parts of us, because we have been very segmented, segregated. Those parts of us begin to come in contact with like a more like wider perspective. They start to like reconcile, and then a new solution is going to emerge on how to get the needs of our truth met, but also in a loving way or in a more harmonious way. So anger is one of the trickiest one, but like I said, like something like expressing a noise, it doesn't need to be loud. Just the thing is to not keep it inside and say like, oh, this doesn't matter. No, it matters.
Yes.
It matters a lot. And it's important because from this anger is where we're going to get the energy and the willpower or the willingness to actually make the changes that we need in education or in our life or whatever. We could talk a lot about anger, but just to give like little insights. Then with regards to sadness, for example, is the same thing. No, it's something that we need to like let it like process inside, let ourselves acknowledge it, because it's good, you know, to recognize that you're disappointed by something and that it could be better. It's a good thing to recognize. It's not coming here to bring us down. It's like it's bringing us down to change something inside, to realize something, to become conscious of something, and then to emerge. The fear also is one of the tricky ones. Like we are very like we have a lot of like concepts that, I mean, in general, it's bad to feel emotions, it's bad to feel afraid, and so on and so forth. But if we just let ourselves like recognize it, like, okay, I'm feeling afraid about making this change. I'm feeling afraid because we're talking about education, no? So I would like to speak more openly what I want or try what I want, and I feel afraid to be rejected, or I feel afraid that my project will not get approved, whatever. Just like take a moment and like recognize it. Okay, I'm feeling fear for this. What am I feeling? Some sensation in the heart, some sensation in the belly. Maybe my legs are a little shaky. Again, just breathe through it. Let it transform. Maybe make a noise, maybe jump, something. And after some minutes, the emotion is going to go away on its own. We're going to be calm. We're going to be clear. And then it's going to be much more easy to do it. Not because it's different to do a project calmly without fear than to have a lot of fear and then put courage on top of it. Then there is already a tension there. It becomes like a bit stressful. So you can do things with a lot of courage and deep inside you're like full of fear, but the fear itself can be transformed. And then we can do it like enjoying. So the fear also, it's a very good emotion that is just trying to point to us that there are some things we believe that are nonsense. Maybe we have a belief that, oh, if somebody criticizes me, it's the end of the world. I must do everything to avoid it. So yes, you can be courageous and do it and still believe that, or you can face it, feel the feeling, and when the feeling goes, you will realize that that's not the best way to think about it. That I prefer to think in other ways. And then another one that can come up is the guilt, that for parents is huge. No, like
this is a strong one, very strong one.
We have a lot of this. No, we feel from the vision of what we wanted for our kids or for our students, why we went into education, why we wanted to be parents, and to the reality that we are seeing every day. Like it is natural that we feel like that we have made some mistakes or with some things we didn't do so well. So the guilt comes, it feels terrible. But if we just like let ourselves feel it, again, this guilt is gonna go away, and it's gonna help us to actually make the changes. Because when we feel this guilt, we're gonna feel terrible. We're gonna feel like, okay, I made a mistake here. Maybe I was like too angry, or I was like too restrictive or too controlling, or I was not brave enough, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And unless we recognize this, nothing is gonna change. We're gonna put like little makeup on top of it, and we're gonna like deep inside, we're gonna have the same attitude, and we just try to like pretend to do it differently. There is not gonna be like a deep, like a true change. Otherwise, it's just like excuses and band-aids. So the guilt that we feel is just the recognition, but sometimes we make mistakes, that we don't know everything, that we are still learning. And it is good to make it something that is just like, it's like a learning process, that's all. It's like reevaluation. You did touch a little bit, like don't take it so seriously, don't put so much judgment to it. Maybe yes, I was not so good parent, maybe yes, I was not so good teacher, or maybe yes, I didn't do enough. Okay, let it sink in and let it like cook inside, and from there's going to be like a true deep transformation that is going to help us to move forward and to reconcile with what we did, instead of like ignoring it. Because the problem with the guilt is not that we feel guilt, it's the opposite, is that we don't feel guilt and we're trying to ignore it and justify like, no, I didn't do anything bad, or if I did something bad, I will never do it again. We have like this attitude that we never really want to like take stock of what happened, take stock of what we did, what we believe, the result, the consequences, and what I would like to do different.
Or I say, excuse me, and that's it, but we don't really solve.
Change. We see this
because then we do it again. And we say, I'm sorry again, and again and again. So this is a loop.
So this is a loop, and the loop is the guilt. They avoiding the guilt, avoiding the recognition that yes, I did something bad, and it's not the end of the world. And when I say bad or negative, put it like in brackets, so we understand the same language. Because
Correct.
actually it has a positive effect on us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So education, parents, teachers, relationship with kids, there's going to be a lot of very strong emotions coming. If more or less we take these ideas into consideration, it can help us to digest all these emotions and go over them onto the other side. We're going to feel more at peace with what we have done or with our past. We're going to feel like more clear, more centered. We're going to have much more energy to then begin to imagine what we want next. Because otherwise, it's going to keep coming back at us. So, okay, let's assume that we have spent a little bit of time doing this exercise. It's not something that we're going to do in 5 minutes, because we are in a terrible state in the world when it comes to children, education, and all this. There is so much we need to do. So it's what it is. We have a lot to change, and there is a lot of emotions involved in that process. It's not going to be done in 5 minutes. But okay, assuming that more or less we are over some of these things, for each item that we have processed and we have come at peace with, then we can begin to ask ourselves, what would I prefer this to be? So let's say, I don't know, like I am afraid to launch a project, or I don't like how the dynamics are in my house. A lot of guilt, a lot of problems, a lot of anger. Okay, once it's clear, then I'm a little bit in a resting place, neutral. Then I can ask, okay, what would I prefer for my family? What would I prefer for my school? What would I prefer? Then the next part of the exercise will be to imagine. Imagine what would you prefer? How would you feel? This is very important. Not just the image and the words like, I want harmony, I want this, I want that. How would you feel if you were in this new educational system, if you were raising your kids in this new way? How would you feel if you had already accomplished that? What would be the sensation? And then, like we discussed in another video, if we try to bring it down again to our body, how would you walk? How would you, and to actually walk, just 5 minutes, like just to walk a few steps, how would you feel if you had resolved this? So what we're doing here is that we're kind of like bringing this emotion into into our subconscious, into our emotional part of the brain, telling ourselves, this is my goal. My goal is to achieve this. It's not just a verbal goal, it's like an emotional goal. And then throughout the day, you're gonna experience changes in what things you're drawn to, in what things you flow towards. Then the idea is to begin to take action on those inspirations.
So the formula is intention, the feeling, walk or do something with the body, and then
down, whatever, yeah.
Be aware of the action to take
act.
because it will fall by itself or something like that.
Yes, like the important thing of the feeling is that if we just make mental goals, so deep inside I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling whatever, I'm feeling disappointed. And whenever I think about education, and then I tell myself in my head, okay, I want to make an amazing school. Whenever I think about education, I'm going to have this bad feeling. So unless I will have to push very hard to make myself think about it. Otherwise, my body is going to try to avoid even thinking about it. So the flow will take me away from it. So the idea is that we need to tell, yes, like our verbal part of the brain, what are our goals, but the emotional part of our brain, what are my emotional goals? So it knows that, okay, education is something good that I want to go towards. I want to explore more because it makes me feel good. It will make me feel great if I achieve it. So just like we know that eating chocolate makes us feel good, and the brain is going to try to distract us all the time to have that little chocolate or to go on social media. If we train our brain that achieving a new or creating a new kind of education, it's going to feel amazing, then the brain, it's going to be the same, like it's going to be like chocolate or like social media. It's going to try to get us to do things about it. It will be motivated to flow in that direction. So this is like a little guide of how to change our paradigm from whatever is our range of action. It can be our family, it can be our classroom, or it can be our school or whatever. To begin to change like our perception about our paradigm and to really effectively change like the way the brain is programmed so we can walk towards that. Like without like struggle and effort and pushing and pushing and pushing and conflict, like more harmoniously.
Very good. I think we have a lot of homework to do now.
Yes, this is a bit of homework.
Very clear, thank you. And next video, please, we keep in touch. We talk about oneness, right?
Yes.
And thank you so much, Juan. Take care, everybody.